Navigating the Digital Jungle with Sue Atkins and friends.
Welcome back to Navigating the Digital Jungle with Sue Atkins and friends, where we help families find their way in the ever-evolving landscape of technology. I'm Sue Atkins, author of Navigating the Digital Jungle, scripts to start family tech conversations about smartphones, AI, online safety and other essential topics. I'm your guide on this journey, and I'm here today with Angeline Corvaglia, creator of Data Girl and Friends, empowering young minds with online safety and AI literacy videos, games and educational materials. We're here to guide you through the digital jungle. We're going to be discussing an essential topic, digital footprints. Now, many young people don't fully realise the permanence of what they post online, from social media updates to even seemingly harmless comments on photos. So every action creates a digital trail that can shape their online presence for years to come. So how can we teach our kids to navigate this digital world responsibly? Well, that's what we're here to explore today. And we've got our guest, Mashood Ahmad, the founder of Gigabit IQ, to join us today. Gigabit IQ is a technology and education initiative founded by Mashood that focuses on enhancing digital literacy and cybersecurity awareness. And he'll share some of his insights on digital footprints, what they are and why they're more impactful than many people realise. So welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Sue.
So what is a digital footprint, and why should parents talk and teach their kids about it and help them to understand its permanence?
Basically, digital footprint is any time you go on the internet, you leave a footprint. And whilst most footprints may fade away if you're in the snow or in the sand, etc., digital footprints are there forever. Even if you try to delete them, they're there in the background. So basically, anyone that visits a website, clicks on a link, likes a post, taps on a video, buys something on eBay or online, posts something on social media, uploads any videos or photos on WhatsApp, etc., plays an online game, all of these contribute to a digital footprint. And basically, the essence of a digital footprint is really how the internet was formed, i.e., enabling content providers provide accessible content to users. And the digital footprint is by way of things like cookies or bookmarks or favorites or historical records that content providers and search engines use that enable a better experience for a user to get access to content. Search something that they searched beforehand, find a video that they liked, find a game that they were on before and get to the same level of that game rather than having to start the game again. So basically, digital footprints were there to create a way of accessing the internet rather than having to start again, making sure that, you had a better experience, a faster experience. But essentially, it is a footprint that every time you use the internet, you leave a trail.
Yes, and that's something that needs to be discussed, I suppose, with children. I mean, what misconceptions do kids have about their online actions, and how can parents address that?
I think kids have a misconception that sometimes if they're online, they can say, if delete it, if it's gone, or only my friends can see it, only my friends can see what I post, or, actually I'm using incognito private browsing, or I've cleared my browsing history and my cookies, so, I'm not worried about my digital footprint, or I'm only using WhatsApp or simple apps, or maybe I'm using a VPN.
I was just going to say about VPN. Yes. So there is a misconception then. So what can parents do? Understand it first themselves so they can have those conversations?
Absolutely. I mean, parents really need to understand and explain the realities of what digital footprints are. And as I mentioned before, the digital footprints are basically ways that, websites track your behavior or apps track your behavior. And so those apps and websites, they utilize that data that a child may go in and identify what application a child is on, how long they're on for, what they're doing, how long they're scrolling for, what they clicked on, etc., etc. And so all of that data is permanently stored in big tech and also in little tech. And so for parents, with all of these misconceptions that kids have, if they delete it, or if they think that their friends, it's only for their friends, friends can share content. Friends are sharing content all the time at schools, and that causes all sorts of issues at schools where something is shared that it was supposed to be confidential, etc. And it causes nude sharing, for example, or cyberbullying. And the whole school gets to know. It's like a domino effect. It spreads like a domino, etc., throughout the whole school. And if kids think that they delete posts, those posts can be, any post they put online, any post can be screenshotted. It can be archived. It's definitely cached. Even Snapchat messages, they're saved. So all of these situations are there, and they cause that permanency of that digital footprint. And so it's not just from the child side, but parents need to also be made aware that, websites, social media apps, they're all tracking IP addresses, whether a child is incognito or using private Wi-Fi addressing, or say using VPNs. And even the VPN companies, they sell or share their data. And so, the data is still being accessed by the people that wish to access it. And so the misconceptions that kids have and parents might have are somewhat, unfounded, or they need to be addressed.
You mentioned the word cache. I understand what that is, but many listeners may not. Can you explain that briefly?
Yeah, so basically, it's like what I mentioned before. It's if a person wants a better user experience, rather than go to the beginning of the book each time to read the book again, they want to go of where left off of that book. Same with online experience. If you've played a game and you've been online, you want to go back to where you were in that game. If you've watched a video of, I don't know, your favorite pop star or your football team, etc., you want to be able to go back to that video again. And so basically, caching is the content that people search for that may be on the other side of the world. But when you access that content for the first time, it may take a bit longer, but then when you repeat access that content, it will be stored locally. So there are caching servers that all of these big tech companies have. Amazon, Google, Facebook, all big content providers have caching servers, BBC iPlayer, Netflix, etc. And it basically means that you can access the content much faster and have a better user experience over the internet.
Gosh, that's interesting, isn't it? So tell us then and explain the difference perhaps between sort of passive, like browsing data, and active footprints like posts. I mean, do you think we've covered that, or is there a difference?
An active digital footprint is where you've actually gone, clicked a post, you've commented, you liked, you purchased something online. Those are considered to be active digital footprints. However, if you go into social media and you start doom scrolling, as many people do,
Yes,
all of that is passive digital footprint. So that data that you are scrolling, that data, how long you're spending on a video, what videos you're searching for, what websites you're just browsing, how long you're spending on that website, all of that information and data is really valuable to advertisers and to people who monetize content and the content providers, YouTube and TikToks and all the other major websites, and pretty much all websites effectively, because all websites have some kind of advertising or data storage or collection capability.
I had some interesting story that helped me understand that concept really well. I was talking to a father who's like very active in ed tech privacy in trying to get the schools in Norway. His name is Christer Aas. He's trying to get the schools to understand the data that the school devices are sending. So he told me the story that he connected. He's got a special device because he's exactly into this digital transformation professionally. So he connected the device to the first year iPad and he scrolled for an hour, just like a kid would. And then he showed there was like the press there and the school principal and the district. And he showed all the data that was being sent to advertising. And some number, you could see like 60% of it was just this passive, the actions, how they were acting online. And it was just massive. It helped me understand like how much of the data, because you can imagine, okay, when I click and I share and I post, but most of the data, as I understand, is actually your behavior. And he also told me that even if you're not logged in somewhere, people say, oh, I'm not logged in. You have a certain way you act that they can figure out that it's you. Yeah. So even as you say, being anonymous isn't help because you have a certain way of acting. And apparently everyone is unique enough that these companies can figure it out. And they also share the information between each other.
Absolutely. I mean, people have a misconception about deleting cookies, for example, and deleting their browser history. That has little to no effect. It might be deleted from their own personal laptops, but it's still stored somewhere on some data service, etc. And so even by those deletions, I mean, companies, even if you go incognito or you use a VPN, companies still track your data by fingerprinting, for example. And so all of that information relates to not only your browser, but also relates to your device, the device you type you use, the capability of that device, what software you're using. And so when I have my own kids, I explain those values to them to say that, potentially everything is or can be tracked. And so you need to be careful what you do online, and you need to think and pause before you share or do anything online, and what that impact is.
And of course, when you were talking there, that's how, when I watch all these police programs and about them taking the digital devices and going off to explore where they've been, what they've done, what they've seen, because they can access it. And actually, I left my laptop, can you believe it, out in the rain in the summer because it hadn't rained for weeks, and I left it out there by mistake. It tipped down and we had a storm, and I went and I thought, oh my God, that's it. The whole thing is lost. And I just took it to the guy and he said, don't worry. And he just got it all back for me, which is quite extraordinary. So we need, as parents, to talk about it, don't we?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, look, anyone buys a new iPhone, it's so easy, so quick to migrate data from one to the other. Before, you had to take a toggle cable, wait for things to download, store it onto hard disk drive, then upload it onto a new device. Now you just pair the two together and it downloads automatically. And that's the difference now, because all content, etc., and all experience and all applications and everything that people do online is linked back into the cloud. And all of that aspect is cloud-based. So whether you have incognito on your device, or you delete your cookies, or you think that, I'm using private browsing, or etc., it's still cloud-based. And so the data is still stored somewhere.
Gosh, and that's scaring me now when I think of Trump and Elon Musk. Listen, how emerging technology, I want to ask you about AI, because obviously Angie's very interested in that too. How do you think emerging technologies like AI are affecting digital footprints and privacy?
AI has really changed the ballgame with regards to how advertisers, big data, content providers, and targeted online user experiences are being created. And, one of the key aspects of digital footprints and the use of AI is with regards to AI profiling. And so basically, it's like AI analyzes much more deeper your browsing history, your likes, the social media post, and they're really trying to optimize the way that AI is looking at how to create behavioral profiles of the person. So going back to the analogy of the school and how that data has been shared, I often hearken back to a video that I used to teach my kids and others about online digital footprints. And that was a video of a child going onto a Facebook site, etc., and promoting their own social behavior and putting their picture online, etc. And it's like a signboard that people put outside their homes, like a for sale sign. But instead of having a for sale sign, it's actually got your address, your location, your picture, etc., etc. And so that's how digital footprints can create a distortion of data that companies used to use to monetize and advertise to you. But AI is taking it to a whole new ball game in terms of hyper-personalization of advertising, for credit scoring. And so all of these aspects are being used by lots of companies. Employees are using these new and advanced AI technology in order to understand potential employees more. Insurance companies are going to use this type of data to understand the profile of potential customers who wish to take out insurance services. And then on the flip side, it leads to much more and aggressive characteristics of things like deep fakes, synthetic identity theft, whereby AI can start manipulating not just pictures, but also voices, images, and also changing appearance of a particular person. So it's kind of
Scary.
it's kind of scary. And frankly speaking, it's for parents as well. They should really understand that it's not just kids who are going online and putting their own posts up, but parents do the same. I mean, they put in baby shower pictures and
I know, or first day at school.
first day at
There's a video
school.
that I've shared where they take the young child, sort of toddler, and then they do all sorts of things with AI, and then you just see it. They're losing control of it completely.
Absolutely.
And it's, for bad actors, it's such a danger.
I explained to my daughter, she's 8, and I have a video about this where I explain, that if you imagine the information about you is a cookie, I am a cookie.
Yep.
And if you smash the cookie and make it into dust and spread the dust around the city, then AI will be able to put the cookie back together.
Oh my God, what an analogy. That's amazing.
Absolutely.
Scary.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Powerful.
the thing. Yeah. And you correctly said, right, it's more and more, I've been reading about this a lot, more and more companies to save money, they'll use AI, as you said, to assess their employees, their potential employees, also to get information. Getting in the US, at least, a lot of the major colleges use it for admissions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I always say, why privacy? Because as you said, parents, they don't always appreciate privacy. So how can you teach it to your kids? Why privacy? Because with youth today and kids, then their whole future is actually more and more being defined by organizations that take their digital footprint and do some kind of assessment. And I'm an American, so I can say I'm pretty sure that has some impact on what's going on.
Do you think so?
Because, if you have all the information about all those hundreds of millions of people who are on your platform, then you can do a lot with that.
Yeah. Going back to some of the statistics you mentioned about the US universities, even the UK universities, I mean, the UCAS had a report out that, around about 40% of UK universities are assessing applicants now on their social media platforms to assess what kind of students that they're going to have within the course that they're applying to. And I know employers, around about 70% of employers, according to YouGov poll in 2023, they screen candidates, if not majority of them now. They're screening candidates' social media profiles.
The digital footprint is also created in the physical world, right? I read some kind of research that these researchers downloaded the Facebook information from 750 people that obviously they gave them permission. And average Facebook had their digital footprint from each person, 2,200 organizations basically that had the information put together. And I know in the US, there's the big Walmart, which is a big store, massive kind of all around the US. Even physically, there was you would go into Walmart, you had the information, it's like when you have your phone and all of a sudden you drive past the store and you get the advertisements from the store. So there's something you're doing physically in the physical world, but you're still creating a digital footprint because, for example, you have the location turned on your phone or something like that. And it knows where you are.
So, Mashood, what can parents do about this? What needs to happen in the home? That's where my focus is now. What do parents need to do, say, or explain to keep their kids kind of aware of this? Because we try and balance out the scary bits with the practical. So tell us what parents can do, and then tell us about Gigabit IQ.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that there are lots of practical steps that parents should do. I mean, I think the first thing is you need to talk to your kids and have a family discussion about, what children are doing online, what they're posting. I always say to my kids, think and pause before posting anything online. Do they wish for this post or this data that they're putting online? It's like, as I mentioned before, it's like that for sale sign that you have outside your house. Would you like a for sale sign with your personal data, or on a billboard or on a placard or on a signboard or something like that? Would you share this content or this data to a local newspaper before the internet came and publicize your personal data in such a way? So that's one aspect of it. Going back to the comment about data and storage and cookies, etc. One thing that I do and lots of people do, and I think is best practice, is don't allow automatic cookies. That way, when you go to a site, it may be a bit of a pain sometimes, but essentially when you go into a site, you can either accept all cookies or just accept essential cookies. And that way you're limiting some of the data that goes to those advertising companies per se, rather than the website functionality aspect of it, or the app functionality, which is the essential cookies part. So you're limited some of the data that you don't wish to share about your profile or browsing or those habits.
So that's quite a simple thing to remember, isn't it? To just perhaps go for the essential, and to teach your kids about just even that is a little step forward, isn't it?
Absolutely. And then there's so many education videos out there. I often tell people that even if you go incognito, use VPN, everything can be tracked. And so one of the things that parents should also be aware is what type of content their children's using. And, if they are using VPNs or private browsing, why? Why are they feeling that they need to use VPN or private browser? And anyone that comes to me and says, my kids use VPN, I question is, for me, it's like a warning signal. I know that some sites, for example, some kids want to access illegal content, for example, maybe a football match that's not streamed at 3:00 on a Saturday afternoon, but is shown elsewhere in the world. They go to some sites that's considered harmless, it's like a live stream, a football match.
I'd never do that, watching Chelsea.
However, the issue is that those sites know that people are coming to those sites, and that's where malware, phishing, and all those issues occur. And people will access things and accept things that they've got no idea about, and those cookies are then stored, and it causes cybersecurity risks. So there's lots of things that parents should do content-wise. There's a site, for example, called Common Sense Media, which is a brilliant site.
Yes. We talk about that a lot on this podcast, yes.
And basically, it's for parents to identify what content their child should be using at what particular age. So everything is age rated.
Age appropriate. Yes.
Everything's age appropriate. And
it's excellent, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an excellent site. And so if service provider, because Gigabit IQ is an internet service provider. And so if a service provider like ourselves or like other service providers have parental controls, then they will definitely help, because parental controls are there to try and mitigate the issues that a average consumer has. Problem is that for a parent, they're going to have to be like a PhD in tech. Their children have so many devices, whether it's a PS5 or an iPad or Android or a smartphone or a tablet. And then on top of that, you've got all the applications, whether it's the social media applications or education applications that the schools provide, or other applications that they maybe have downloaded, Teams, Zooms, and all of these types of things. And then on top of that, you've got all the gaming applications like Roblox or Minecraft. 50% of parents really don't use parental controls because it's such a fluff, it's such a hassle, trying to access that and, try and mitigate. And that's why there's so many parents sort of give up, in terms of online safety. And so that's why we encourage the use of parental controls in terms of a safety mechanism, just like why some content that used to be print publications used to be on a top shelf. or cigarettes are behind counters, is there for a reason. It's basically there to help mitigate access for children so that they, not knowingly in some cases, access content that they shouldn't do. And so any parental control that has age-based filtering, the ability to block social media sites, block websites, block harmful content, block VPNs, for example, is a fantastic tool and should part of the armory that a parent should have. But it's not the be-all, end-all.
It's a combination, isn't it? It's a jigsaw approach as well. So can you tell us exactly what you do and what your product does quite succinctly so parents can go and find you and explore what you're offering?
Yeah, so I mean, Gigabit IQ, we are internet service provider at heart. So we are an internet service provider created by parents for parents. So whereby we provide gigabit internet speeds, really fast access, great service, great Wi-Fi, a managed Wi-Fi environment, per se, which is kind of unique in UK amongst ISPs. What that allows us to do is provide a capability of managing the safety and security of the users in a home, because contrary to popular belief, much of content that is accessed or is vulnerable for a child is pretty much in their bedrooms when they're alone or in their homes. And so that's where safeguarding and safety mechanisms need to be put in place. And that's what Gigabit IQ does, because we provide a application that we provide to our customers. And not only to our customers, any customer that doesn't have our service as a broadband service can still take our Wi-Fi, can still take our app. It'll work over any third-party broadband provider like Sky or TalkTalk or EE or et cetera. And basically what we provide within that app is two features. One is called FamilyGuard Plus, and the other one is called CyberGuard Plus. And as per the name suggests, FamilyGuard Plus protects the family from harmful online content. So it blocks inappropriate content by age. So specifications from 0 to 8 years old, or 8 to 13, 13 to 18, or over 18. And so a parent can say, okay, fine, my children, they're age 12, so I don't want any content that they're searching for online, whether that be on YouTube or Google or Bing or any application, etc., that is considered over 13 to be accessible by them. And so our web filtering and parental controls blocks them. So as I mentioned before, a parent doesn't need to be a tech scientist to understand PlayStation 5's parental controls, or the Android phone's parental controls, or Roblox's parental controls. Our parental controls act like, say, a master remote control. So I used to have a master remote control for your DVD, TV, and everything else. So it effectively acts as a master remote control for the home. And then the other side, on CyberGuard Plus, basically what we do is we protect them from home and all the devices in the home that people have, their Google thermostats, IP cameras, all sorts of devices that people buy from Amazon or eBay or whatever. And basically, it's like having a Norton or McAfee antivirus, but for any Wi-Fi enabled device. So it's basically a cybersecurity protection for any devices that are connected in the Wi-Fi, and it protects against viruses, malware, threats, and
comprehensive
phishing attempts, etc. So that's essentially what Gigabit IQ does.
Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us today and explaining about digital footprints, explaining about what you do and how you protect children. It's been fascinating. So thank you very much for your time today. So, Mashood, where can people find Gigabit IQ?
Yeah, so you can find Gigabit IQ on the internet, www.gigabitiq.com. We're the provider that cares. Our catchphrase is speed you need, safety you trust. You can follow me on LinkedIn at Mashood Ahmad. You can follow all of our social media profiles, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube.
So you're everywhere.
Yeah, pretty much everywhere.
Of course you are.
And we're actually launching a new site called saferinternet.uk, which is going to include lots of resources and tips and guides for parents to navigate the online dangers and help with parental control, specific application and requirements, etc. So those are the sites for anyone to access if they wish to contact us.
Thank you. I'd like to tell you a bit more about my new book. As a parent myself, I know firsthand how overwhelming it can feel to keep up with the digital world our kids are growing up in. That's why I wrote Navigating the Digital Jungle Essential Scripts for starting meaningful conversations with toddlers, tweens and teens about smartphones or social media, AI, cyber safety and much, much more. My book is bursting with ready-to-use conversation starters that make it easier to guide your kids through everything from screen time and social media to the tricky terrain of online safety and artificial intelligence. It's like having a roadmap for those critical and important chats every parent needs to have. My book of Digital Jungle Scripts is all about giving you the tools to start those difficult but important conversations, no matter your child's age. Easy, practical scripts to help you feel confident and connected. So, if you're ready to feel more self-confident around discussing Roblox, Snapchat or WhatsApp, grab your copy of Navigating the Digital Jungle Essential Scripts and start transforming those tough tech talks into meaningful family moments. And let's get those conversations started at navigatingthedigitaljungle.com/resources. Here are some interactive methods to discuss digital footprints with your children. My practical sort of ideas. There are 5 here, methods that you can use to discuss digital footprints with your kids. So, number 1 is Google Yourself Challenge. Encourage your children to search their name online with your guidance and discuss what they find and ask, what kind of information is available? Would you be happy if a teacher, grandparent or future employer saw this? Because this, I think, helps them to understand that their online actions leave lasting traces. My second idea is the digital tattoo activity. Explain that a digital footprint is like a tattoo. Once it's there, it's hard to remove. So give them a washable marker and ask them to write or draw something on their hand and then get them to wash it off and see if it comes off completely. Then you can ask them, so did the ink disappear right away? What does it tell us about what we post online? Because I think this gives them the concept of permanence and it makes it more tangible to kids. 3, I have a pop socket now available on my website called Pause Before You Post. This is a great way of getting kids to think about what they're doing. So you could role play different online scenarios where they might want to post something impulsive, a silly photo or a negative comment or any personal details. And I want you to get them to think. So T is it true? H, is it helpful? I, is it inspiring? N, is it necessary? And K, is it kind? Because I think pausing before you post with those ideas in your head really can help children manage their digital footprints. And do check out my new pop socket, Pause Before You Post. Another analogy or another idea is to the glitter experiment. It's a bit messy, but it's fun, so let's have a bit of fun with it. Give your children a small amount of glitter and ask them to spread it over the table, and then get them to try and gather it all back and explain that this is a bit like the digital footprint. Once something is shared online, it's almost impossible to completely erase. And Angie gave the analogy in this podcast about the cookie. So look out for that amazing analogy about AI and cookies and what happens when you squash them and what happens to them afterwards, because I think these are very powerful ways of talking and teaching children.
If you use something like ChatGPT, if you have the history turned on, then you can ask it to tell you about yourself. or ask it to create an image of you and see how much it has discovered about you. No, that is a really nice way to understand really what kind of impression, how much is being collected.
Really, all these very simple visual things or auditory things, they just bring it home. So it's not abstract. It becomes very practical and you do it together. So you have the conversations. And my last point is who's watching the social media privacy check. So sit down together, review their social media privacy settings and talk to them about who can see their posts. Do they have any personal information visible? And are their accounts private? Because this, I think, shows them how to control their online presence and be mindful of what they share. So it's always about pause before you post. So I think also there's the need for schools and parents and tech companies to work together. Of course, we're always saying that on this podcast about online safety education. It's time for our Family Change segment, which we challenge you or offer you a small impact step on your digital journey. And this week's challenge or change is to review your digital footprint together as a family. So go through the social media accounts, look up your names online, talk about what you find, and encourage your kids to consider if they're comfortable with the content they've posted. This is just getting them to think. So grab your digital machetes and tackle it together. Angie, what's your thoughts about that?
Yeah, mine is related. And actually, it's about having a privacy mindset, because all the listeners will have understood that it's all so complex and there's so many places where our data is shared. It's impossible for the average person to get it all under control. In the sense, it's just too much. There's too many ways it's being collected. But if you have a privacy mindset as a family and say, we said about the cookies, every time the cookies pop up, say no.
Whack-a-mole.
It's having the mindset that anytime I use digital, I should check, because sometimes even when you do an upgrade, then in certain geographies in the EU, we're pretty protected from this, but it can reverse your privacy settings if you do an upgrade. So just a regular check and having that mindset will help. Like I have with my phone, that I travel around and I have nearly everything turned off except for my location. It never knows what ads to show me. It just shows me the ads almost exclusively based on where I am physically. It's good for me. So yeah, it's about having the mindset as a family. It's just always think about it and turn things off. And over time, you'll protect your digital footprint.
Listener questions.
So this is something we've kind of discussed. Question is, how can I explain to my child that even deleted posts may still exist online? I mean, I think that you explained it quite well, especially with the tattoo analogy, right? And also we discussed about the screenshots and the caching and all of this. So yeah, basically, I think that's the best way.
And another analogy actually just popped into my head is it's like when you drop a stone into a pond or a puddle, it just ripples on, doesn't it? And it keeps on rippling. So you can just think about that. And one of my things that I talk to my parents about when I'm working with them one-to-one, I say to them, imagine squeezing some toothpaste out of a tube. Even if you try to get it back in, some of it will always remain outside. So the internet works in the same way. Once something is posted, even if you delete it, even if you think it's been saved or shared or something, screenshotted even by others. So, mention that to your kids, the analogy of the toothpaste squeezing out. We've got all of those today. We've got loads of those. So I hope one or two of them might resonate with you and help you think about that.
There's another question that came. How do I make my teen aware of potential consequences without scaring them? I think teens obviously know a lot about online privacy, and sometimes that's a clash, right? Because they think they know more than their parents. And one thing I've heard that works really well, I mean, besides what we said about the college and the job prospects in this, is if you just ask them, unlock your phone and give it to me. And they're like, no, why? That's my private stuff. And well, it's not private because you're sharing it online. So that really helps. I didn't make that up. I got that from some privacy professionals, but this apparently works really well. It's the same thing as unlocking your phone and giving it to your parents to read, and they understand.
That's brilliant. I love that, because you can imagine the faces of kids going, no, I'm not sharing that with you. Well, you've just been doing that out there to the real world. So it's a great
Yeah.
tip, that one. Think about positive digital footprints examples as well. I mean, there is positive. So a teenager who shares their artwork or their coding projects or their volunteering experiences, they're building up a positive online presence. It's impressive and it's strong and it's wonderful. So later on, a university or employer sees that and offers them perhaps a scholarship or a job opportunity. We've always got to see the two sides to everything. And as we've talked a lot about the negative, but the offensive joke or the odd mean comment, just think about that, because that also goes out there for years later. So it might affect your chances. And I think that really is worth talking to kids about.
Now for some top tips.
And that leads us to the weekly quick tips. So this is the segment where we share some bite-sized nuggets of wisdom. I think we've done quite well today with quite a few of those to help you navigate the digital jungle more effectively. This week, the suggestions are: think before you post, get them to think about that, use privacy settings, and create a positive digital presence. That leads us on to script of the week. Quick scripts to start important conversations. As you know, I've written a whole book around all of this, but here's a quick one about digital footprints for kids. You say, hey, whatever your kid's name is, have you ever thought about how everything we do online leaves a mark, like footprints in the sand? And they'll say, what do you mean, or whatever. And you say, well, you post a photo, you leave a comment or even a like, it creates a digital footprint and it records your online activities. Even if you delete it, it might still exist on someone else's screen or in a screenshot or on a company's data storage. And then you chat through with them. So they say, can everybody see what I do? And you say, well, not everything, but many things. So future teachers, colleges, job employers, and even sometimes they'll check what you've shared online. So it's important to think before we post. And that analogy about give me your phone, and they go, oh no, I think that's going to work magic in loads of families. So the way forward with all of this is think before you click. And that's the conversation that I think this week could be your family challenge or your family change or your quick script. So Angie, what are you working on this week?
Well, by the time this airs, I will have worked on a massive conference. You can look it up, shieldthefuture.com, just to see a lot of speakers from all around the world about online safety. Sue's also speaking there. So really check that out, because we're bringing people together from different countries and cultures to help each other with online safety. And then there's Data Girl and Friends, which I'm working on some courses that will be ready soon, hopefully after the conference, teaching the basics of online safety before a kid gets online and gets on the phone. Datagirl.com, and there are hyphens between all the words. And you just check it out, because we also have lots of videos that you mentioned and lots of educational materials there.
At the bottom of all of the things that we do every week, we have a resources page as well in the show notes. It is incredibly powerful to watch it. And also we have all sorts of helpful resources that discuss digital footprints with kids and teenagers. So we'll put all that in those show notes and we won't go through them all here.
Navigating the Digital Jungle with Sue Atkins and friends.
So thanks for joining us on Navigating the Digital Jungle this week. If you found the episode helpful, consider subscribing to get our extra content. Check out our website where I've got all my resources that I've written to help you. There's blogs, there's merch, there's all sorts of things. We'll help you as best we can if you go to navigatingthedigitalJungle.com/resources. And we hope you found the insights that we've talked about around digital footprints helpful. So until next time, remember your family's online presence matters, and let's work together to make it one that we're all proud of.
Yeah, jungle out there.
Time for a word from our sponsor.
I'd like to tell you a bit about this episode's sponsor, Gigabit IQ. At Gigabit IQ, they're redefining your internet experience with blazing fast gigabit speeds and award-winning online safety. Discover how their FamilyGuard Plus and CyberGuard Plus are safety features that keep your home and your loved ones protected from digital threats. Ready to upgrade your connection and keep your family safe online? Visit gigabitiq.com and experience the speed you need with the safety you trust. Gigabit IQ, where intelligence meets internet.